Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be doing a review of our product update, new features. We'll have a Q&A at the end for you. My name is Elisa Sklar. I am the VP of Marketing here at GIS Planning, and I'm delighted to be co-presenting today with my colleagues, Jeff Sunnison, the Director of Client Services, and Chris Gillis from our support team. Hello, Jeff and Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So just some of the things that we're gonna talk to you about today is we're gonna show you our new 3D renderings. Those have been super popular. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of them created on our client's website since we launched them at the beginning of this year. So we'll show you how easy those are to do and to save and to share. We'll talk about our very new Compare Properties feature. This is something we just launched. If you were following our blog post from last week, you can now put properties side by side and do a comparison of them, share that, and you can have it saved in a folder as well. So you'll see how we can do that. We're going to talk about filter by area and pinpoint tool. Jeff is going to talk to you about adding GIS layers that you might have and local data. We'll talk about our brand new intelligence component design. This is very exciting. So you'll get a chance to see what those will look like, and we'll talk about how easy they are to implement. I will, in a moment, mention our website compliance guidelines, and we're also going to be talking about map layer identity function and our transition to a new data provider for Lead Gen ID. Lead Gen ID, as many of you know, is one of our tiers of analytics that uses reverse IP lookup so you can see what companies are visiting your GIS planning web tools. So we will be doing that shortly. Just a couple things before I pass this over to Jeff is just to mention how website compliance works. This is something that we have worked to do. Many government organizations increasingly need to meet pretty stringent guidelines for people with disabilities in order to ensure their tools on their website are able to do that. We meet website compliance, WCAG compliance guidelines 2.0. So what that actually means in your state, in your region, or possibly even in your country may be a little bit different, but it allows people to navigate either yet, say, using tabs. One of the things that we've done on our thematic heat maps, you'll notice, is that instead of just using the familiar colors, which may not be visible to people with certain kinds of visual disabilities, you can now view as patterns or using colors that we know are visible to people with color blindness, for example. So these are some of the things that we are working to do to give you and your website visitors the very best possible experience on your GIS planning tools. With that, I am going to pass this over to you, Jeff, so you can take it away.
Okay, excellent. So I'm just going to run through some of the tools that we've added recently and some that have been there for a while that are just really important and that you should be aware of. So the first one we're going to take a look at here is the 3D building modeling tool. And I'm just going to select a property that has vacant land. So we'll grab this one here. And this is a little more dense area, but I'm going to go ahead and choose that 3D rendering tool here option again. And going to draw this area here on the map. And actually that was my mistake previously. I don't know why I was expecting something different. As soon as I went into that mode to draw that property, and in fact, I'm going to switch back over here to the Waco site. As soon as I go into the mode to draw that building, I have the ability in here, and you should see a faint green outline that's being drawn. And I can place that in here, and you'll see it starts to generate this building. I can start the height in here. I can also add some decoration. So I can choose a type of facade that I want to use. And then you can also, depending on the height, you'll want to change how much that it goes over. And then if I scroll down a little bit more, I can see I can change light and intensity. Now, whenever I have this where I want it to be, I simply click apply. I can name this, so I'll just call this building 1. And I can save that. And now if I come in here and I hold shift, I can rotate around that location and I can see that the building that I've created. I also like to look at this in the map view because it shows the other buildings kind of in the same box form, so it gives it a little more context in there. And then if you wanted to, you could come in here and you could generate a new one. So maybe you want to provide a couple different options. So I could come back in here and let's go ahead and turn back on our satellite. And I might draw just one other additional version of this. And we'll collapse that. And as soon as I do that, I go back in here. We even have some fun designs in here like the Lego bricks. So we'll use that one for this one example. And we'll do that. We'll hit apply. We'll call this building 2. We'll save that result. And now we can see that version of the building that we've created. What's important here is what you're creating is not going to be seen, with one exception, by anyone else unless that person who's designing this shares this. So one of the nice things about this is when I'm in here and I click share, if I use this URL here, whatever user comes back to this property, they will see this 3D building rendering. But again, it's not published to everyone. They would have to have this URL here. Now, also when you're in here and you're looking through these, you can see you can look at the different building options. So if I want to click around and show the different options, I can see those as well. Now, again, I mentioned that these are strictly for the user that created them and wanted to share them. However, there is one exception here. And as a full admin, if you come into a property, so I'm going to go to this same property here that I created that building on. I'm going to click on edit. And if I come over here to the 3D model option, we'll see that we have these models that were created on that property. And by default, you can see that these are all set to published false. If you wanted to, for whatever reason, to have that building always show up when anyone visits that property, you would simply come in here and you would publish that building. The other nice thing about this feature is you can actually come in here and see what users are doing on this. So if you're a full admin and you just want to see, are people building 3D models, you can come in here and you can actually preview any of these models. And in fact, if you don't know what property has it, under properties, you can go to manage 3D designs. And right within there, you can see all the different buildings that have been being created by your end users, and you can preview those. Again, it's up to you if you want to publish them, and just note by default they're always unpublished, and those can only be shared with those users that create it with whoever they want to share that with. Now, the next thing I want to show here is a brand new feature we just released last week, which is our property compare. And there's a couple different ways you can use the compare. So one here, you might notice that we have this new compare option here. So if I come in here and I start to select these different properties, you'll start to see that this generates a compare down below. I'm just going to add these 3 here and I'm going to click compare. And what's great about this is it's going to look at those property details and we can see everything side by side in that property report. So you no longer have to open 3 different property reports, look back and forth. This puts everything side by side. The other nice thing here is you can export this to Excel and you can share this as a direct link to anyone that you want to share these comparisons with. There is no limit to the number of properties you can compare. You know, for the best functionality, you're going to want to maybe keep it under 10. But as soon as you start to get over 10, you'll get a scroll bar here where you can just scroll through these and see those different properties. Except you won't be able to necessarily see all of them side by side. You're limited to kind of the width on the screen of what you can see. Now, another way you can do this is, and let's just turn this off, is if you're using the saved properties function. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to save a couple properties. I'm going to put these over in my folder. And one of the things we've done is over in the saved properties option, you'll see that right there within that, you can go in here and also compare your properties. So it's another shortcut. So if you're building some things in there and you're saving some properties, you can jump right over and compare those properties that you've saved. So again, if you have any questions about that, let us know. You know, we're really happy with that new tool and the ability to look at those side by side. Couple other tools that are in here that have been here for quite some time, but just want to make sure you're aware of them. We have 2 tools. One is the pinpoint tool. And so if I use the pinpoint tool, this allows me to drop a pin anywhere on the map, and I can do any of my demographic reports around that location. So I don't need to have a property or look just for a community. You can come in here, drop that pin anywhere you like, and then you can generate those same reports from that location. Now we have 2 different versions of the area filter. So the first one is when we're under properties, if we click on this area filter option, what this will allow us to do, and let me zoom in a little bit here first. If I click on this option, this will allow me to filter my properties just by the area that I've defined. So if I click apply, now I'm only going to show results for this area. So this isn't really doing any type of analysis as far as demographics, but it's filtering the properties. Now, if I go over to explore communities and I use the area analysis tool, this will come in here, and instead of selecting properties, it's going to run an analysis on that location and give me my demographics report, my businesses, my labor force. I can now pull those up around not just a radius or a property or drive time. It can be around any area that you've defined in there. So that's a really powerful tool that you can use to really isolate and look at just the areas that you want. And again, anything you're doing in here, I've created this area. I can still share this. If I share this URL with someone, it's going to take them back to this exact same area that I've created here, to that exact same report. So it's very important that you don't have to have another user replicate what you've done. You can just send that to them. Now, the final thing I want to mention today is map layers. We support all types of map layers. We can take KML files. We can take GIS shape files, geodatabases, and then we can even connect to an ArcGIS server service. So any of you that have a GIS department that has ArcGIS server running, what this means is they can publish a map service and they can just send that service URL to us, and then we can incorporate that into the site. What's important about that is anytime that changes are made to the data, that's automatically updated on the client's end, and then it shows up real time on our site. So there's no need to send updates to us. So an example of this over on the Miami-Dade site, if I click on map layers and I go to land use, zoning, and parcels, I'm going to just turn on the zoning here. And this is coming through as an ArcGIS server service. So it's actually pulling from the servers over in Miami-Dade County and pushing this over real time onto the site. The other nice thing here is when I do that, I can then click on these layers. So if I click on any of these zoning areas, it's going to tell me, whatever information is provided in the service, we can push into this. So this is telling me the zoning and the description here. Other layers that are, great for this, maybe something like parcels. I can turn on my parcel layer here and we'll turn off the zoning. Now, the one exception here is when we're using ArcGIS server services, we are dependent on however your team has set those to display. Sometimes they put a scale dependency or something like that. So, we can always work with your team on that to make sure that it displays the best way on what we're doing on our end. And you can see now that I've zoomed in a little, I can see the parcels here. And if I click on those parcels, I can get the parcel number. Again, if you have any of your GIS layers that you want to share, just reach out to support@gisplanning.com. We can pretty much incorporate anything that you have, and we can add to the site. And we have a lot of our clients take advantage of that service that we provide. That's it as far as what I'm hoping to cover here. I'm now going to turn this over to Chris.
All right, great. Yeah, so I'm going to show you something about new intelligence components. Let me share my screen here real quick. Got it, sharing the right window here, perfect. All right, so we have just recently updated, and they're just still fresh in the back, almost not out of the boxes yet. Updated our intelligence components. Our intelligence components about a decade ago came out of some of the reports we have in ZoomProspector. So as you're in your ZoomProspector, all these reports here, a lot of those can be intelligence components. So what those look like on a website, here's the community profile intelligence component. It's this graphical one that gives a quick overview of the place. If I click on demographics here, this is the demographics intelligence component. Let me show you what these new ones look like here. So we've got essentially what they look like in ZoomProspector now, a lot more closer. So here is, for a whole state level, the demographics one. I've turned on a map layer that I can switch to the map view very easily here. If I zoom in, I'll get a different view of this data by zip code or by block group there. But this is one element. So you can have a page talking about demographics on your website. You can put this data in here. You do not have to have someone that updates that or have stupid PDFs floating around that you have to download somewhere. This is actual data that's up to date for your, city, county, or state here. So it gives all the functions you are used to in ZoomProspector, but on a page. And you can wrap in some SEO-friendly content or some human-friendly content with this. It's super handy and gives people the information they want. We split these out. So you'll notice over here, when I was showing this one, we have labor force demographics and consumer expenditure on the current IC. You can still use this, but we're able to split these out. So demographics, we have a labor force one that's separate here. Here, when I switch to the map view, guess what? It's gonna load up that particular set of data there to show me it on the map view. So it has a lot of power and fresh updates to those. Guess what's next? Consumer spending here. So I can toggle between graphs and so forth. Again, I can turn on a map layer very easily and navigate back and forth. The reason we split this out is it gives you more options. Things that are be coming directly from your ZoomProspector and be placed across web pages on your website. Not everyone's going to go straight to look at your ZoomProspector. Not everyone's going to look at everything in your ZoomProspector. They may come to, say, a page about consumer expenditures or labor and workforce. They can see this data on that page, and then they're going to be wrapped in the rest of your site. So this is super important here. There's also a business one here as well that we have ready to go. So this one, I've come in and I've turned on clusters just like we do in ZoomProspector here. I can change to the map view of this and see where those are located there. I do have some options to share and export as well, but sharing is really the big one for something like this. But again, these are 4. We've got some other ones coming as well. These are something, if you are have a subscription, a full subscription to ZoomProspector, you can get these on your website. If you are interested in getting sort of an early peek at these, I'm happy to talk about these with you. This is something we would want to have a call, talk about your website, how you're implementing your ZoomProspector, and go from there. So if you're interested, put in the chat or questions. Here you're doing that. Elisa at the end is going to give out support@gisplanning.com. You can also send an email to that. Say, hey, Chris, I want to get on board with these intelligence components earlier there. So some updates to those, just to preview here. These are the widgets that will go across your website. We've got 4 that I'm showing here. We're soon to have more. And if you're interested in an early preview, get in touch with me. Okay. So the other one I want to talk about, and this is probably the big one, is our lead gen ID. So a lot of you know this. If you have this full subscription to ZoomProspector, you'll have the ability to either receive a spreadsheet report weekly or log into Lead Forensics. You may have received an email from us about this recently here. We're simply changing providers here. So there isn't a huge metaphysical change. We just think the new provider just offers a little more user-friendly features here. So with the current Lead Forensics, if you have data you want to save, asking you to export that. We do have a page about exporting that data, and I can put that in the chat right now. If you are a ZoomProspector customer, you can follow these instructions. If you don't know your login to Lead Forensics, just send an email to support@gisplanning.com and say, hey, I need help getting my archive. I can just send it to you. You'll just simply need to do that soon because this service is going to sunset. Our new service, we have a screenshot of that. We'll be giving a more robust demo here in a webinar in a couple weeks. But it just lays out who's been visiting your site and what the actions they've done in a little clearer and simpler method. So this is going to be rolling out in the next couple weeks here as we move from one to the other. This is called Lead Feeder. It's really sort of apples and oranges that are very similar, both sort of fruits. One's just slightly different shape than the other, but it's just so much easier to use. So with this one, you'll get logins eventually to come in and look at this. Anyone in your team can get a login, but it's great to come in and just see who's been on your site and what they've been doing. Okay. Now with both of these, for Lead Gen ID, this isn't the total users. We're not sending out, turning on people's cameras and taking a picture here. This is a subset of total users. So with this, it is going to be identifiable traffic coming from commercial IP addresses. There's a lot of restrictions on what these people can show us in terms of what's in Lead Feeder here, but you can kind of see here from the screenshot, you're getting a good idea of the kinds of organizations, whether it's a nonprofit, a company, and so forth. And then on the right here, you can kind of see some of the actions. You're able to see like my one here because this is simply our own GIS planning instance of this. So we've connected our actual emails and computers to this. But overall, you'll see person 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you'll be able to do that for each one. We're really excited about this. There's some other features we're going to talk about a webinar with this, but the goal here is to log into this regularly, look who's been visiting, talk with, if you're the business development person or you have someone broader on your team, talk about how do we handle Crow LLP? Why were they here? Should we reach out and so forth? And again, we have in the admin, if you go to help, we have a help article about this, about the migration here. I have a little video of how to set the time period for that, and then any other questions you've got about that transition. This will be updated over time. I have to learn what the process is myself. We're still figuring out some of the actual details as we move from this, but it is pretty exciting here. And with that, that's the end of the feature portion there. I'm going to turn it back to Elisa, but for the questions, if you have questions, put them in that question panel. We have a few we're going to go through, but we would love to have more there. So, all right, Elisa, do you want to go through questions with us?
Sure, yeah. So I just want to make sure that people can see my screen. Let me just grab the controls back here.
Okay.
And so you can have our contact information up here on the screen. So we did have a few questions. Kevin wants to know about measuring square footage, and I believe you wrote that question when we were looking at the 3D rendering. Jeff, I know this is something that has come up as a question, or Chris, if either of you want to just chat about that.
Yeah. That's been a request that's come up. It's not in there yet. I think that is something we're thinking of incorporating into it, but currently there isn't a square footage calculator in there.
So
you will, when you are drawing a building like Jeff showed you, it will show you once you close the building envelope, it will show you the square foot of that building. So you will be able to see that, but it doesn't, it's a very basic and quick tool to draw a general shape of the building. Okay. So Kevin, hope that helps you there.
Right, so we hear you. This is something you're interested in. We've heard this before, and this is something that we are going to look at. So thank you for that. Can I track usage of the intelligence components?
We are working on that. So with your lead gen ID, that has always been connected to your ZoomProspector, not necessarily your intelligence components. As we roll these new intelligence components out, we're looking to get the lead gen ID on that. It is something that is still in the works. But with that, it's not only the page that your ZoomProspector's on, but it's the page that any of those intelligence components are. So it adds a great value to you as a GIS planning customer with your ZoomProspector description, because if you properly implement things, you get a little more boost with that tracking. And who doesn't like to see more numbers there?
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Who should we contact about issues logging into the current lead gen system? Sarah, that will be Chris and Jeff. They're on the line with you, so they will, I guess, reach out to you after the webinar. Is that all right?
Yeah, and for anyone, it's support@gisplanning.com. Just shoot me an email, and just say, hey, I need my lead gen archive, and I will get that to you. I'm a little backed up in email, but it is coming. So just shoot that to me because you probably don't have a login, but we're happy to help.
Excellent. Okay. And Chris wants to know if we can discuss how to create a proposal for the properties.
Oh, yes. Can I take the screen and kind of whip something out here real quick?
Sure, yeah, I'll pass this back over to you. That's a great question.
Okay, yeah.
And we have some additional, Chris, like we can follow up also after the webinar by sending you some additional resource materials on creating proposals.
Yeah, Chris, let's have a meeting about this. I'm going to show you the Whiplash version of how to do this here, but it is super easy and super fun. So here I'm in a ZoomProspector. I'm logged in as an admin here. I can come in and I just need to favorite some of these properties. So this little heart here is what I need to do. So I just need to come in and let's just add it to this example one. I'll add this to example one. I think I already have some in this one from yesterday. I do. So you'll favorite some of those. These ones, the hearts are a black color. It matches the secondary black here, so it's a little hard to see gray versus black. But if I go to saved results, because I'm logged in, I could compare these properties here, but also I could export them to a proposal. When I'm logged in, this is going to happen automatically here. It's going to open up the proposal itself and show me the skeleton of that proposal. So give it a second to think. Here it is, the two properties, a map, and then a navigation pane here. And because I logged in, I can see this edit proposal. This is where I'm going to be able to change the proposal title, add some contact information. That's going to happen in this main settings. I can add individual pages here. So as you start, you can create just a fresh page here. But as you go forward, you can copy from other pages here. So for example, create this welcome letter, move it to the first. I can manage properties. I could unapprove something or totally remove something. I can add documents as well. As I do that, that is going to update my proposal here. So here I put that extra page of a welcome letter in. Obviously, I don't have a welcome letter typed, but you get the idea of what's going on here. You would have a welcome letter, you know, as your organization, what we do for you as a client, a industry-specific page for that particular client, what they're interested in, you know, workforce. By all means, a quality of life page, you know, sell why in the world should I have to come to Pekin, Illinois to operate my business? Maybe it's a great place to live. Tell me that. This is all things you can accomplish in a proposal. So if you're a ZoomProspector customer with a full edition, I'm happy to go over that. Send an email to support@gisplanning.com and we can go over what that looks like. But it all starts from your ZoomProspector and just saving a few things in a folder. It's super easy. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I don't see any other ones. I think you may have mentioned it, but we can also duplicate proposals. Once you've got them, you can duplicate them in your system. So,
right, you're going to really create one master proposal. Like, let's say this is your stellar proposal and you nailed it. You do not need to reinvent the wheel all the time. You're going to come and create a new proposal, copy pages from your stellar one into your new one, and you know, just keep making people happy.
okay, excellent. And one last question. Can I use reports from ZoomProspector if I'm not an admin? I'm not sure I entirely understand that question.
If they're talking about the reports from the front end of the site, like any of these that you're generating, those are absolutely open to anyone. They're generated, shared, exported, all the above.
Yeah, so as you come in here and you're looking at any of these reports here, this one's taken a second to load here, but you see this report here, this share button, that's going to get, anyone can share, hey, I saw this on this website. I can put simply, in fact, I can do this in the chat here for everyone, get everyone into this particular ZoomProspector here for Atlanta Township. If you have your own ZoomProspector, this is something you should be doing regularly. This is something Elisa and I harp on all the time. In fact, once you have implemented your ZoomProspector, there is nothing left to do but use the share button and create proposals. That is the whole thing. You're looking for data and you're sharing it with someone. That's the end goal there. Also, this share button can be used across your websites. You have a text about, view our demographics, and you're going to create, copy a URL like this, hyperlink that text. That's going to get someone back over into your ZoomProspector. It's going to start tracking, hopefully, in the lead feeder, the lead gen ID. So the share button is so important there. So anyone can do that. Anyone has that ability, whether an admin or not. It does not matter. But if you are a ZoomProspector customer, you should have this tattooed on your forehead backwards so you see it in the mirror that you're using the share button regularly.
That's how you'll drive traffic your way. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think I will grab the presenter.
Okay. Yeah.
Roll back just to keep our information up on the screen here. We encourage you, of course, to reach out to us if you have any other questions offline. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your ideas and your questions and suggestions, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Jeff, Chris, thank you so much for your tour.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the time this morning or this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Have a good day. Be well.
Okay, thank you.